All right, we're back and we're glad you could stay with us. And in this segment, we get to answer some questions that perhaps you, the viewing audience, have had while I was teaching in segment 1. And so we have searched the world all over and found the right person to ask these questions. And she is the one and only Stacy Ferryman. We're happy to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Well, fire away. What questions have you got for me?
Sure. So from your teaching today in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42, I was thinking so many of us can relate to the story of Mary and Martha, that we're in such a busy world. So some Christians feel like they kind of are punching their time card, their spiritual time card. You know, we're going into church and check, we helped with the choir, we are an elder or a deacon, or we're serving in some way on the church board. So why doesn't that count for our intimacy with God, for our personal time?
Yeah, isn't that something? You know, when you love somebody, the essence of that love has to be spending time with them. Otherwise, you're kidding yourself. And it works that same way with the Lord. When you love him and you are giving him charge of your life, you have to spend time with him. You have to sit and you have to listen to his teaching and accept his guidance. And so it gets to be a question of whether you are spending time for the Lord or time with the Lord. You need both. But how do you balance that out? Because the scale needs to weigh down more heavily on time with him.
Right. So what if that's true, but what if I can't say no? What if I have this personal trait or this skill and they keep coming for me?
Yeah.
And I can't say no.
I got to raise both hands because I'm one. My wife and then even my daughter would take my mouth and say, "Here, say no." Try to teach me to say no. But you have to reach that point where you can do it. And I think one of the things that helps me is a good old calendar. And I have both the printed calendar and an electronic calendar because I can carry it with me in my my tablet or my computer, either one of those devices, because it's an online calendar system. And once a week, I sit down and plan out the week. Now, that doesn't mean I won't have interruptions, of course, and things that I had not planned for. That'll always come up. But I have to determine day by day as I'm looking at the tasks, not only the schedule, but as I'm looking at my tasks, I am forced to prioritize those tasks. And as I have them in order of priority, then if something else comes in that is of a greater priority, I know better where to put it and how to prioritize it because I've got a system of prioritization, if there is such a word as that. And that's what I'm using. And I think it's a matter of priorities for all of us. So
what if someone were to say, but there's all these opportunities and I'm a person that just likes to be busy.
Yeah.
But I love the Lord.
Yeah, and that is true. And we all, I know I tend to fall into that trap. I just have to be busy. Even during this coronavirus stuff where you can't get out, I find stuff to do. I need to be busy. But again, it gets down to the point of prioritization. How much, and what are the priorities in terms of spending time with the Lord, studying the Word, that kind of thing. Perhaps calling and making some checks on people who are further isolated than I am to make sure that they're doing good. That kind of ministry, as well as the things that I'm doing for myself.
So does it mean that I'm out of the will of God if I skip prayer because of a busy schedule, or I have a busy day, or I'm a mom and it just didn't happen today? You
know, there are times, Stacy, when I have gotten up early in the morning and there were things that came up just like that. I mean, legitimate things that had to be taken care of, and it just whisked me through my day. And every time I reached out to try to find the Lord to say, I'm going to spend some time with him, there I'm off to something else. And I mean, very needful things. And I got to the end of the day and I discovered in the quiet of the Lord that he wasn't holding it against me. Now, he wasn't allowing me to use it as an excuse to go through every day like that either. But there are hectic days when that can happen. And the Lord is more flexible than we think. I mean, any God that tells you that all you need to do to please me is give somebody a cup of cold water if they're thirsty, that can't be a God that's hard to please, okay?
That's true. So then, looking through that then, how much time should I spend in prayer and in the Word? Like, what should that look like?
You know, when I'm asked that, I very often ask because people want me to quote a specific time. And I can't give that to you because I think it depends on a number of things, one of them being At what juncture are you in your relationship with the Lord? At what juncture are you in the middle of something you're dealing with, something that you're going through? What task are you seeking him about? Are you spending enough time, if you're a preacher, are you spending enough time getting the message from him rather than taking off on your own on what you think you ought to be preaching? And that kind of thing. I think it depends on that. So I can't put an actual clock on it, specific, but I know that we simply must spend time with the Lord. And the earlier we do it in our day, and I'm not saying you got to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, but the earlier in the day, the beginning of your day that you do it, the better off you are, because then it tends to launch you into your day. I know some people are better at it at night. Some people are night owls. That's when they come alive. And God understands that because he wired them that way. And I've met other people who are middle of the day type people. Me, I'm early morning. Before anybody else gets up, it's just the Lord and me.
Bottom line, be in the Word, right?
Amen.
So then we linked in our previous show this to the coronavirus. This is what's going on right now. So what is the blessing to the believer, to those longing to get into the Word? What's the blessing of this coronavirus lockdown, stay-at-home order time?
Goodness. I think there's several. One, I think that we have more time because we're in a lockdown situation. There's more time to do things for the Lord in the home, if it means writing. Perhaps the Lord is leading you to write a devotional or a book or that kind of thing. More time to call on other people who are quite vulnerable and need to have a phone call from somebody. For instance, I lost my first wife through death. So I call on other men who have lost their wives through death just to check on them to see how they are. Because this is a difficult time for them. They can't get out and try to do things to fill their void as well. So I think it depends on what you're doing. But you have to be creative in asking God, what can and what should I be doing during this time? Another thing, I think that as Christians, we're seeing that the world is seeing their vulnerability and their mortality, because this coronavirus, you can't see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, whatever. It's there and it can kill you. And so with that vulnerability we all have, we must commit ourselves further to the Lord and reach out to people who don't know the Lord, who don't even know how to approach the Lord. And we must reach out to those people in love and turn them on to Christ.
Absolutely, yes. So some people, like myself, sometimes have a short attention span. I don't do well at give me an Old Testament book where I'm reading through something that I don't quite understand. How do I focus? How do I really dig in deep when I'm doing good to make it through a couple of verses?
Yeah, the first thing I tell people about that to relieve all kinds of guilt is that you are a normal, natural person and your mind will drift. And you know what I tell you? Go get it. If your mind drifts, go get it, bring it back and get yourself back on track and keep going. The Lord understands that. The main thing is you're working at it, you're trying. And you tend to get better at it over time, but again, you're still human, and your mind will drift, depending on the things that you're going through, the things that come across your day and the like. That will happen. But just get back on track. I just go get it. My mind, I just go get it and bring it right back.
So you're a seasoned believer. Do you have a Bible reading plan that has really worked for you, or a devotional that you would highly recommend?
Yeah, I like the devotion of, I think her name is Sarah Young. And I like hers because, and even of a man, I mean, she's not writing it to women per se, it's written to everybody, but she writes it in the first person, as if it is the Lord himself speaking to you. And it's only 2 to 3 paragraphs long, but at the bottom of that page, she will have 1 to 2 to 3 scriptures that relate to what she talked about in those paragraphs. The other one on the other side of the spectrum, Rick Renner, Sparkling Gems, has 2, Sparkling Gems 1, Sparkling Gems 2. This man has a tremendous ministry in Moscow, but he's very, very well known here. He's spoken in the church that I attend several times. And it's more of a study in Greek as well as your lesson for the day. But it's not in a boring sense that'll just turn you off.
Would you recommend it for the new believer, or as you're a little further
A little further down the line. And that's about all the time we have. I wish we could get into more. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we thank you, our audience, for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of In the Word with Bill Harris. Join us next week for more inspired teaching from God's Word. Experience more of this anointed teaching in your own church or ministry setting. Contact Bill Harris to schedule a seminar. Topics include scriptural teaching to strengthen marriages and family, in-depth knowledge about the end times, the biblical principles of finances, and a biblical insight to discerning personality styles and enhancing relationships. Contact Bill Harris through Rapture Ministries, Post Office Box 948, Holland, Ohio 43528. Email billharris@bex.net or call 419-340-2006.